Our first speaker this morning is the president and a 1968 graduate of St. Francis College. Brooklyn native Brendan Dugan has been president of St. Francis since 2008. Prior to this position, Mr. Dugan served as chairman of St. Francis College's Board of Trustees, as well as chairman and CEO of the Metro New York, New Jersey division of Sovereign Bancorp. He is also a director of Cox & Company, a manufacturer of aerospace parts for military and civil applications. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Brendan Dugan.
Thanks a lot, Jacqueline. And welcome, everybody. Good morning. I guess it was about 2 years ago now. There was a lunch held between two people at a local restaurant in Brooklyn Heights called Queen. And it's very good, by the way, the best Italian red sauce restaurant around. I recommend it. But the two people were myself and someone named Mary Gellermino. And Mary Gellermino is somebody who I had met at 3 different financial institutions, of which I was the president. And a real ball of fire, a really well-connected person who had an ability to attract, retain, and see grow small businesses of all types, and a large Rolodex of entrepreneurial-type people. And while she, based on her extensive educational background, she occasionally worked as an adjunct at some of the other local universities, she was reaching a point in her life where she wanted to change her occupation. And on the spot, I kind of thought of what a college such as ours, which for generations has had success in training and developing budding entrepreneurs and small business people, might do in the face of the soft economy and the need to re-stimulate our small business capacity. So that conversation led to a series of other conversations, and before you know it, St. Francis, complementing the rest of its business program, was in the business of entrepreneurship and small business development. So here we are today. This is hopefully the first of an annual event we hope to have, where we will bring together leaders from government and government agencies, together with successful business people and financial people, for the benefit of those who are interested in involving themselves in entrepreneurship, particularly minorities who need a little extra help in order to jumpstart their efforts. So I really hope that this is the beginning of our effort to establish a resource for the community in general and to you specifically. There are a lot of people that I probably should thank for getting us here, but I don't want to go down or on that slippery slope this morning, because I know I'll leave someone out who should be recognized. But I do have to thank the people in our small business and our entrepreneurship center, starting with Dr. Dennis Anderson and Robert Wu. And also I need to recognize again Mary Gellermino, our executive in residence at St. Francis College. So can we have a round of applause for them? We hope to create a center at the college which will create the backup folks for all you entrepreneurs. I can assure you that they will come filled with fire, the need to succeed, and with a great basic education in the fundamentals of business and entrepreneurship. So let's get on with the program. You don't need to hear any more from me. We have an incredible panel assembled here, people who are out there every day promoting small business and entrepreneurship in the community. We have the city, the state, we have a great, I think the best Chamber of Commerce anywhere represented here. And I say that as a board member and a member of the executive committee, but that's not why. I have served actually or dealt with all the chambers of commerce in New York City, and I can tell you the one that gets things done is the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce, and we're happy to have the chief executive of that here today too. So I'll turn it back to Jacqueline so we can get this the ball rolling, as they say. Thank you for coming. We really appreciate your interest and your support.
I'd like to add one more thank you to the New York Stock Exchange for hosting this wonderful breakfast here in this beautiful room. Our next speaker is Patrick McCrell, President and CEO of the New York Business Development Corporation, the NYBDC, the 504 Company, and the Excelsior Growth Fund. NYBDC and its related companies have a combined portfolio under management in excess of $1.2 billion. Prior to joining the NYBDC in 2001, Pat practiced commercial and banking law in New York, representing a number of financial institutions and businesses. Pat is a veteran of the United States Marine Corps. I'd like to take a moment to applaud that. I have a lot of military people in my family, so I appreciate your service. Let's see. He's a graduate of York College of the City University of New York and Albany Law School. He's admitted to practice law in the state and federal courts in New York State. Pat's a member of numerous boards, including the York College Foundation Board, the New York State Small Business Development Center Advisory Board, the New York State Economic Development Council, and the National Association of Development Companies. Please join me in welcoming Pat McCrell.
Good morning, and thank you very much for having me. Since I'm both Pat McCrell and Senator Charles Schumer this morning, you're going to catch me at my bipolar best. Thank you for that generous introduction, Jacqueline. So I'd like to say I'm a recovering attorney. The 12th step is actually denying you ever were a lawyer. So I'm pretty close to that. So what's an entrepreneur? Why are you all so excited about that? I think an entrepreneur is someone who's bold but careful, someone who's cautious but audacious, someone who's confident but at the same time uncertain. And I think more importantly, and perhaps the most important, they're aware, but they're oblivious. The entrepreneur, forges ahead trying to make open doors and forge paths that others have either passed up or not identified. They've done that because they lack perhaps the passion, the knowledge, the confidence, the recklessness to proceed down a path that perhaps others have not, or to proceed down a path that others have taken, but they are choosing to take it in a different way, with a different passion, different zeal, and maybe even a different goal. So a little bit about, just NYBDC and how our focus is on that. As Jacqueline said, we have quite a few small business loans. Been around for a little while. Been doing this a little over 60 years. But what's important to us is the number of small businesses that we help each year, throughout, whether it's dealing with the Brooklyn Fund and Carlo and the tremendous work they do, or dealing with Empire State Development, Steve Cohen, across the rest of New York State. The opportunity that we have to see 500 plus, to provide financing to 500 plus small businesses at varying stages of development over the course of each and every year is fascinating, incredibly interesting, while at the same time challenging, and from the lending perspective, some downright scary. We've had over the years, opportunities to involve ourselves with some folks that you may or may not recognize that to us sort of spark the entrepreneurial spirit. I mean, a fellow by the name of Hamad Yukaya came to us a few years ago with a crazy idea about Greek yogurt. Crazy idea. Hamad, as you know, is the president and CEO of a small company called Chobani. When he came to us, he had a little bit of a recipe for feta, family recipe. We thought that was okay because he'd actually made feta before, and he wanted to buy a plant where he'd been renting. But he had a crazy idea and a crazy vision about taking that into some other products. And so you see, what you see today. But that started, around a small table in a small office with a good idea, and a minority entrepreneur from Turkey who immigrated to the United States. A little closer to home, and may rest in peace, Gilbert Rivera. Anybody know Gilbert Rivera? Of course, Gilbert Rivera now is memorialized, I guess, in the Gilbert Rivera Foundation, and an incredibly active and tremendous family that's continued his business at Park Avenue Building and Roofing Supplies in Brooklyn. That was a gentleman was a roofer who had an idea about starting a business. Employs hundreds of people in Brooklyn. Before his death about 5 years ago, he had developed into a tremendous resource for the community and a tremendous supporter of various things. A native of Puerto Rico, immigrated to the United States with a phenomenal idea. Ariel Barbuth, and that name mean anything to anybody? Besides people who work for NYBDC? Anybody ever get a empanada in Times Square at Nucci's? Yeah. Native of Argentina, with an idea of taking Argentinian street food and making it a popular food in the United States, or increasing its popularity. Needed some capital, crazy capital. I met him in a branch bank in Brooklyn one night where he happened to be handing out empanadas to the people who were at a meeting in the branch. Now, as you see, he's got his kiosk in Times Square, and his food truck can be found just about anywhere. Once again, native of Argentina, immigrated to the United States with an entrepreneurial spirit and a focus on making something happen. Now, a woman who none of you will know, I think, Linda Washington. 2 years ago, you might have seen her, actually might have known her, because if you saw her 2 years ago, or even a year and a half ago, she might have been the person knocking on your door at 7 o'clock in your office at night and asking if she could have your trash can to empty it. She might have been picking up your coffee cup or cleaning your office or doing something else. But through drive, getting the right, focusing on a desire to make something different, an African-American woman from Harlem starts her own cleaning business, gets an 8A certification, gets an MWBE certification, and within the space of relatively very short period of time, has gone from office cleaner to owner office cleaning company with almost $1 million in federal and private contracts for her business. So what does that mean? What does that mean? Does it mean there's plenty of opportunity? Sure there is. Do minorities have it a little harder than others? I think so. I think when you talk about capital, you talk about the entrepreneurial life, you talk about the challenges that entrepreneurs face, and you add perhaps color to that, you add perhaps language to that, you add the fact that you may be different than the banker you sit across the table from to that. It adds an undiscernible, but definitely a factor that's there. I don't know how many of you saw a Washington Post article that was about 2 or 3 months ago that did a study, quite frankly, as a white male banker, an incredibly disturbing study, but it was a study nonetheless, that took a black man and a white man, gave them identical facts in terms of balance sheet, income statement, history of the business, type of the business, location, and recorded the reaction to the banking community, recorded to those. I don't mean just to malign the banking community, because I'm proud to be a part of that, and our company is owned by the banks in New York, and they make a concerted effort to support that. But to indicate the barriers, the uncomfortable barriers that we face, the very differences, that article, and I encourage you, I recommend it to you if you haven't seen it, the differences in treatment between the person of color and the person that was Caucasian was sickening, quite frankly. And the fact that the study was carried on in 2012 and 13 was disturbing. But they're treated differently. One was given a business card, one was not, almost with astounding frequency. One was given an application, one was not. One was introduced, one was given a name, one was not. So the ideas of entrepreneurship, which is being challenging enough, compounded with a minority status, make life very difficult, as if being an entrepreneur is not difficult enough. So I think what we have in this focus is, Dennis, is a very good one, because there are ways to deal with it. There are organizations, there are avenues, there are paths that minority entrepreneurs can follow that will allow them to enjoy the success and overcome the challenges, the dual challenges of being a minority and being an entrepreneur. You know, I was at I'm getting depressed. I was at a roundtable that we hosted in Jamaica, Queens, about 2 or 3 months ago, and it was focused on lending to African American businesses, and the focus really was that we had seen post-recession, if we can call the period we're in post-recession, although I'm not entirely sure. They said in the period we're in, the recovery of lending to small businesses was significant. However, the recovery of lending to minority-owned businesses did not match the overall recovery to small businesses post-2008. And of that group, the African-American business community was the most poorly served in terms of access to credit. And the idea that there would be, as I learned at that summit, 5 C's of credit for Pat McCrell and 6 C's of credit for an African-American business owner, the 6th C being color, I found to be extremely disturbing, more so that it was a conversation occurring in 2014. So that's the sort of the landscape as I see it. It identifies the challenges we have, and it makes ever more important the commitment we have to make to provide a path, to facilitate access to capital, to facilitate the knowledge, the contacts, the information, to overcome what that great liberal George W. Bush said was this, the soft bigotry of lowered expectations. We have to expect more. We have from everyone. We have to expect more from the support people. We have to expect more from our technical assistance providers, our lenders, our chambers of commerce, our government, to focus on our colleges, focus on minority opportunities, and give that extra push, not to give them a benefit, but to give them equality, to promote access, and to eliminate, in our, to the extent we can as business people focused on an issue, the soft bigotry of lowered expectations. So how many entrepreneurs do we have in the room? Ready to run for the door? All right. So here's the deal. The folks here on this panel are an incredible array of talented folks. Greg Bishop, from the city, Steve Cohen from the state, Carlo, David from the Navy Yard, Paul Quintero, I didn't see him from Axion. Is Paul in the house somewhere? Is he here? Oh, hey, Paul. Great resources for you. We even thrown an entrepreneur on the panel so we can get back to you. The idea, and I think what the theme and focus, certainly to the extent that I make additional remarks in the panel, is preparedness for the entrepreneurial challenge, looking for the right assistants, the right partners, finding out who you can trust to act in your interest as opposed to their own self-interest, how you plan, how you finance, and the shortcuts that you might take in the early stages of a business in terms of, well, I'm not going to report this, or I think I can handle that by a trade, or the various bartering that goes on that may be very helpful to get a business started. Make it very difficult for a business to grow. The challenges that a small business had, the temptations to avoid some of the more traditional things like taxes, often confound us lenders and technical assistance providers because we see what the business can be. We see how the business can grow. We see the strength and motivation and commitment of the entrepreneur who owns that business. But sometimes we just aren't able to provide the level of help and assistance we need because the background's not there. The foundation's not there. The entrepreneur will say, well, I don't have time to spend looking at my financials. I don't have time to do financial statements. I don't have time to focus on these kinds of things. But as you sit here at breakfast, it seems sort of silly that you'd be in business and you wouldn't have time to look at your financial statement, to figure out whether you're making money, to figure out if you'd be better off working at a minimum wage job than owning this business. Seems silly when you're at breakfast. It doesn't seem so silly at 10:30 on a Saturday night where you're closing the shop, you're exhausted, your kids need something, you have to go home, you have to fix a water heater, you have to be back at the store the next day, so you have to put yourselves in their positions. You have to put yourselves in that minority business owner position, or the small business owner who's working 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, just to sort of keep the momentum going. So that's where we, as the other side of the coin, the technical assistance providers, the bankers, we have to be sort of the level setting there. We have to be involved early and often. We have to provide assistance and guidance in an unselfish way that allows the business to appreciate and understand how important the right foundation is to future growth and future success. Finding the right professionals, the right accountant, the right attorney, the right people to listen to, the right path. So hopefully what we're going to do today is we're going to disclose to you or share with you a variety of paths from, as I said, an incredibly, there's not a single person on this panel that I don't have a tremendous amount of respect for, including myself, of course. But a great panel with great information, great insight. And, I commend you to hear what they have to say.
I have another thank you to make. I want to specifically thank Dr. Dennis Anderson, a dear friend and colleague, who brought me on not just as your MC, but I'm also on the board of the Center for Entrepreneurship, and I brought the Academy in as one of our partners. So if any of you know any content creators who are in the entrepreneurial space, send them my way. I also would like to bring some attention to our Twitter. We've got a hashtag going. I encourage you all to tweet, if you'd like to tweet at me, shameless plug, at JacquelineJG. I tweeted already. And indulge me for a moment. Everyone look alert and cute. I'm going to take a photo of you guys and tweet it out. Come on, look happy. Look sexy? That's better. Look like happy entrepreneurs. There we go. Okay. Thank you for that. Our next speaker is a 1979 graduate of St. Francis College. He's had a distinguished career as an executive working on Wall Street. He is currently Executive Vice President of the New York Stock Exchange Cash Operations. Please welcome Lou Pastina.
Thanks, everybody, for being here. It might be a weird place to have a conference on entrepreneurs, the New York Stock Exchange. Kind of strange. You might be asking yourself the question, why? But the New York Stock Exchange is 222 years old. It only went public 9 years ago. So it took a long incubation period to actually get to the point where it could actually list on its own exchange. Another reason why you're here is that the exchange was bought last year. It was bought by a company by the name of the Intercontinental Exchange. And the Intercontinental Exchange was founded by an individual by the name of Jeff Sprecher. And Jeff founded the company 14 years ago with $1. He had $1 and an idea. Today, he's the CEO of a $22 billion company that owns the New York Stock Exchange. So if you have an idea and you have $1, you could be ringing the bell at the New York Stock Exchange. So my reason for being here is, as was mentioned, I'm a St. Francis College alum. I'm also on the board, thanks to Dr. Anderson, and I've had a great career at the New York Stock Exchange. My career could be traced back to my grandfather, who came to this country about 110 years ago, and like many at the time, couldn't get a job, so he started his own company, a junk business. And that junk business allowed him to buy a home for his family in Brooklyn. And his 6 kids grew up there. And one of those kids still lives there, my father. He's 86 years old. He's long retired now, but being the youngest of that group, got to go to college and encouraged me to do the same, which is how I wound up at St. Francis College. And so from an immigrant who got here 110 years ago, I stand before you as an Executive Vice President of the New York Stock Exchange. It can happen. It may take a little bit more time than 14 years, but it can happen. So I hope you have a great conference. You've got a great lineup of speakers, and best of luck to all of you. Thank you.
Our next speaker will be introducing the panel. Carlo Scissura, a lifelong Brooklyn resident, has been president and CEO of the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce since September 2012, leading one of New York's largest business advocacy and economic development organizations with nearly 1,900 members. Prior to leading the Chamber, Carlo served as the Chief of Staff to Brooklyn Borough President Marty Markowitz for 5 years. He served as the 2010 New York City Charter Commission, was elected to Community School Board 20, and also served on the staffs of State Senator Vincent Gentile and Assemblyman Peter Abare. He graduated from Pace with a major in political science and from Pace Law School. Born and raised in Bensonhurst, Carlo has been an advocate for Brooklyn his entire career and started a solo legal practice that became a thriving small business in Dyker Heights. Carlo also serves as the president of the Federation of Italian-American Organizations, where he spearheaded the building of Il Centro, the new Italian Cultural and Community Center opening later this year. Please welcome Carlo A. Scissura.
Thank you. Good morning. By the way, you said Il Centro perfectly. Prego, prego, prego. Happy Monday. Is everybody excited to be at the stock exchange on a Monday morning? All right. I know after a weekend it's hard to be up early and ready to rock and roll, but we are here, and we hope to learn a lot. I know I'm going to learn a lot from this panel. We hope that all of you will get a lot out of it, and we hope that when we finish at around 10:30, 11, it's really the beginning of the next steps, that all of you will engage, will come out and visit some of the people you meet this morning. And one of the things people never do, and I'm going to ask you to do it right now if it's okay, is just introduce yourselves to the people sitting next to you. Quick, say hello, tell them who you are. All right, good. I feel better when you guys already introduced yourselves. You see, how many of you did not introduce yourselves to everybody at the table? Raise your hand if you had not introduced yourselves to the table yet. All right. So let me just tell you a quick little bit about me. My parents are immigrants from Italy that came here in the late 60s. They were part of that last wave of Italian immigrants, similar to your parents, who came a little before. And what did they do when they got here? They spoke very little English. My father spoke a little bit. My mother spoke none. Somehow they opened up a restaurant and did very well. And then they owned 3 businesses over the course of 20 years. I will always say that immigrants, and particularly people who come to New York to learn about the city and come here to make a better place for themselves, really have that drive, that energy. And we see it every day at the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce. We see it in our members. I think we have a lot of Brooklyn Chamber members. Raise your hand. Good. A bunch of you are here. Thanks for coming out. A couple of our board members. Raise your hand. I see Lisa back there. Hello. A couple of you out here. Good. Our job at the Chamber is very simple. We're here to help you grow. We're here to help your business thrive. We're here to help you succeed. We're here to help MWBE businesses certify. But it's more than certification. It's about certification and then getting jobs. It's about certification and then getting contracts. It's about certification and meeting people. So one of the things we are proud of doing at the Chamber is certifying MWBE businesses. Ronnie Harris, raise your hand. If you are not certified MWBE, you could see her later. She's the Director of Community Affairs at the Chamber, and she could work with you on getting that done. But then we have something called Brooklyn Connects. Brooklyn Connects is a program that brings together contracts that are out there, whether it's in private, government, or everything in between, with MWBE companies, and helps the MWBE companies get a leg up and go out and find these wonderful projects. So it's very exciting. Brooklyn is hot, as you all know. It's hot because of the businesses that we have, the people. It's hot because St. Francis is a leader in education, not just in Brooklyn, but in the entire city and state. And they're thinking ahead. They're thinking outside of the box. They're looking at how can we help businesses grow? What can we do for our businesses? How can we make them succeed? And really, under the leadership of President Brendan Dugan, they've taken off. So let's give St. Francis a big round of applause for all that they do. And I just have to give a shout out to my new communications director, Michael Pantelidis, who started, let's see what time it is. He started 45 minutes ago. And he's doing a great job already. Michael, thank you. I have been tweeting already. I know Juan has already retweeted. So tweet and get the word out about this wonderful program. So I'm going to introduce the panel. Maybe I could ask all of you to come on up now. And I will start with Greg Bishop. Greg is Deputy Commissioner for Business Development at the New York City Department of Small Business Services. Greg is responsible for New York City Business Solutions Centers, one of which the Chamber manages in Brooklyn. Business Incentives, the Business Outreach Team, the Corporate Alliance Program, and the SBS Customer Service Center. These programs are designed to make it easier for businesses to start, operate, and expand in New York City, and he really is a great resource for small businesses. Next up is Steve Cohen. He is Deputy Commissioner at NYSE Empire State Development. He oversees small business services and community economic development for Empire State Development, whose programs and initiatives support small business growth and help entrepreneurs maximize their opportunities for success. He's working on a range of projects for the entire state, and I'm sure you'll hear a little bit more about it. Saudia Davis is the CEO of Greenhouse Eco Cleaning. She founded Greenhouse Eco Cleaning to make caring for your home environmentally friendly by using green techniques. Her cleaning service also protects its employees from the long-term effects of exposure to harsh chemicals. Now, there's someone who's thinking very much outside the box. A former publicist, she started Greenhouse as a side business before devoting herself to it full-time in 2007. David Ehrenberg is the new president and CEO of the Brooklyn Navy Yard Development Corporation. He took over a couple of months ago and is doing really a fantastic job. He oversees the yard's diverse tenant base and is watching a major expansion of the Navy Yard under his leadership. He oversees everything at the Navy Yard, from contracts to leases to letting people know everything that's happening and attracting new businesses in the Navy Yard. Prior to joining the Navy Yard, David was an executive vice president and co-head of real estate transaction services at the New York City Economic Development Corporation. Pat McCrell, you heard from a little bit, but he is the CEO of the New York Business Development Corporation, Empire State Certified Development Corporation, and the Excelsior Growth Fund. Their goal is to promote the business prosperity and economic welfare of New York State by providing loans to small businesses at all stages of maturity, and we run with them the Brooklyn Fund out of the New York City Business Solutions Center, which is there to help immigrants and veterans in particular get loans to help start and grow their businesses. And finally, Paul Quintero, who is the CEO of Acción East. He's been there since 2007 and brought with him 15 years of investment banking, public accounting, and community development investment experience. He joined Acción to champion the development and growth of small mom-and-pop businesses that comprise the majority of U.S. firms. Since he's been there, they have spread their operation to more than 30 states, drastically reduced its delinquency rate, and greatly increased in numbers and dollars the amount of loans that they have dispersed. So let's give a round of applause to our entire panel. And I'm going to ask each of the panelists to give a 2 or 3 minute intro, a little bit about what they do, how they're helping the businesses out there, and then I'll lead off with questions.
So I guess I'm starting since I'm sitting right next to Carlo. Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here. As you've heard from Pat and the speakers this morning, this topic is really important, not only to me, but also to the city of New York. About 2005, we started what we call the NYSE Business Solution Centers. We have 15 across the 5 boroughs, 7 focus on entrepreneurs, really to make it easier for businesses to start, expand, and operate. We cover a number of services. We have about 9 services covering from education to financing to navigating government, because if anyone has started a business in New York, you know it's very easy to do that. I say that. It's a little early morning humor. Sorry about it. Just want to see if you're awake. So we actually help businesses navigate government. So we have located in our centers account managers who, you know, if you are looking to start a business, we'll sit down with you and help you with your immediate need, but then try to connect you with our other set of services. On the financing side, and this is why you're here. Last year, we were able to connect over 900 businesses to $44 million worth of financing. I'll talk later in terms of how we were able to do that, but we have a network of over 30 lenders, and some of them are here. Paul is a good partner of ours. Pat is a good partner of ours. And we also learn about different services. So Steve, who will probably talk about some of the programs we also cross-sell, it's a good partner of ours. So our centers are here to help you, and we'll go to more details as to how we do that, and looking forward to the conversation. Thank you.
So I'm Steve Cohen. I'm at Empire State Development. We are the economic development agency of the state. So we have a number of programs and services for small businesses and for minority and women firms in particular. It's a big priority of the governor and of our agency to support small businesses. We've all heard the statistics about how important small businesses are to the economy, and when you dive in deep to, minority businesses and women businesses and immigrant businesses and businesses in various communities around the state, supporting those businesses is not just, we don't do that just for equity or just for opportunity, but because it is an economic development opportunity and strategy for the state. So this is really about job creation. This is really about supporting business development and raising additional revenue for the state and those sorts of things. So it's very much an economic development strategy, and sort of we realize that. That's sort of point number one. And then we have a number of programs and services, which we'll, I'm sure, get into in more detail later. But sort of some big headlines, under this administration, we've launched $160 million in new access to capital programs, leveraging $750 million in private funds. We have a number of financial assistance programs, not just direct lending or equity capital, but guarantees and interest rate buy-down programs and those sorts of things. We have training and technical assistance, which we bring out into the communities around the state, serving underserved communities around the state and so forth. We serve minorities and women in very large numbers through a number of our programs. And we have a number of targeted programs to address specific challenges, which I'm sure we'll talk about in this panel, whether it's access to capital or whether it's connections and networking and mentorship and those sorts of things. So a lot of activity over the last several years. Very excited about some of those initiatives. Again, working with my colleagues here on this panel, work with pretty much everybody here in one capacity or another, work very closely with the city, and that's a very strong partnership that we have, which is great, I think, for everybody. So great to be here. I'd like to thank the college, President Dugan, Professor Anderson, Lou in the New York Stock Exchange, Carlo, of course, and we're just very happy to be here today. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Saudia Davis. I'm the CEO and founder of Greenhouse Eco Cleaning. Greenhouse Eco Cleaning was inspired by my grandmother, who was a professional cleaner. Unfortunately, she passed away of cancer due to years of using really harsh cleaning chemicals. Today, we have 30 amazing employees that service homes, offices, and buildings throughout New York City using only natural cleaning products. I'm so happy to be here and to be able to speak about entrepreneurship, not only being a woman, being from Jamaica. I think I have a unique advantage of just being able to speak from my employees' perspective, also being immigrants, coming from disadvantaged households. So thank you so much.
Good morning. I'm David Ehrenberg. I'm the president of the Brooklyn Navy Yard Development Corporation. Carlo, I've actually been there a year now, so I'm not quite so new, and I've got no more excuses. Wow. Although we have a fairly large operation, so I'm still getting my hands around it all. For context, the Navy Yard is a 300-acre industrial complex on the Brooklyn waterfront with about 4.5 million square feet of buildings under roof. That's about half the size of Prospect Park or a third of the size of Central Park for context. So we have quite a significant real estate holding. We manage it, the not-for-profit that I'm the president of manages on the behalf of its owner, the city of New York. And we're a mission-driven not-for-profit focused on providing effectively a safe harbor for businesses that, where focus on industrial and manufacturing companies by and large, although we do have a mix, in order to provide them a safe harbor so they can invest in their people and equipment and hire additional employees. And that's for us, what it's all about is the job generation and then making sure those jobs are available to our local community. What we provide to the businesses is, as I said, a safe harbor as a 501c3. We are not as subject to the pressures of the real estate market. Our tenants aren't as subject to those pressures as many, certainly in the Brooklyn in Brooklyn these days. And we also provide significant flexibility to companies as they grow, as they shrink. We hustle in ways I think many landlords would not in order to try to meet the individual needs of our businesses. And then we really provide what I see as like a place-based set of services similar to what ESDC and SPS do, but solely focus on the tenants within the yard and the community immediately surrounding the yard. So we've got employees who walk the halls of all of our buildings, knocking on doors, getting to know the businesses, getting to know their trials and tribulations and opportunities, and then just doing the hard work to help connect them to resources, whether it's at the state, whether it's with SBS and the services that we house at the yard. It's not rocket science. It's just putting in the effort. And again, as a not-for-profit, we can dedicate the resources that we need to in order to make sure that we're getting into the businesses and really understanding what they need from us.
Thank you, and good morning again. NYBDC, I think many people confuse it with a state agency, a city agency, and a variety of other agencies. But actually, NYBDC was formed in 1955 by the banks in New York. The idea was that small business lending, the banks recognized at that time, small business lending was labor-intensive, time-intensive, and could be challenging. There was an SBA then, but it had just formed 2 years before. They weren't doing any lending. There weren't the types of programs available for small business lending that exist now. And the banks in New York got together and they funded this company that would take additional risk, the risk that wouldn't be comfortably sitting on a bank's balance sheet. They decided that they would essentially create an assigned risk pool for those of you with teenage drivers in your past, to deal with those challenges. They would put their money together, they would fund NYBDC, and NYBDC would take on the challenging roles. But I think one of the things I'm most proud of is about our company and its legacy is that our the statute that formed NYBDC in 1955 had in its enabling language, one of our principal missions was to promote access to capital for minority and women-owned businesses. And that's 1955. Think about what was going on around in the world in 1955 in the United States. Think how many states were, that was before integration of many colleges and schools. That was when societies were living in very separate but unequal statuses. And that's a time when the legislature and the banks in New York said, we have to provide this opportunity and we have to make it available. And I'm proud to say that we've advanced that mission so that more than 35% of our lending is to minority and women-owned businesses. But you've heard enough about me. Before I turn over to Paul, I just want to ask one question. And the person who gets it right will get a free Post-it notepad from NYBDC. Trying to think what I have in my pockets. What's the principal reason that most small businesses do not get a loan? You get the notepad. They don't apply. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Paul Quintero, and I'm the CEO of Accionist. We're also a nonprofit, and I jokingly say we're like the Star Trek Enterprise. We boldly land where no bank will go. Our mission really, I guess for over 20 years, has been to fund big entrepreneurial dreams through small loans. We call ourselves a microlender, which right now that means that we lend up to $50,000, but that doesn't really explain what it is we do or who we are. So I'm going to just briefly, touch on a couple of themes that were here. One, the theme of Brooklyn, because that's where our beginnings began here in the United States. Two, there was a theme of junkyards, and I want to build up on that because it's relevant to how we began. But back in 1991, a woman named Uvalda, who came from northern Mexico, and with her husband, all they knew was how to make things, moved to Brooklyn when, back in the day, there was a lot of manufacturing in Brooklyn. My own parents had worked in manufacturing in Brooklyn. And 1991, like 2008, was a recession year, and so it hit manufacturing like everyone else, and she lost her job. 1991, like 2008, The culprit was real estate, although in that time it was savings and loans and not our financial institution. Unemployment the year later would reach levels that we wouldn't see until 2008. So there's a lot of, they say if history doesn't repeat itself, it definitely echoes. And so we have a lot of echoes there. But it was in that context that Uvalda, knocking on doors, was trying to find a way to make a living. Her and her husband had a 1-year-old child. She didn't find a job, but what she saw in the junkyard, and so here's the connection, she saw a food cart. And she told the owner, and this is back in 1991, what are you doing with that food cart? And he says, nothing, I'm a junkyard. You know, you want to buy it? She says, no, I can't buy it, but can I rent it from you? And he said, well, what are you going to rent it for? And she said, well, I'm from Mexico. I lost my job. I can't get a job in the factories, but my idea is I can make lunch for those who are still working in the factory. And after he stopped laughing, because he said, what, Mexican food in Brooklyn? He went ahead and let her lease this food cart for about $50 a month. So, you know, month 1, month 2, month 3, and she's living hand to mouth and making just enough to provide a little for the family, buy what you need for the food next day, and pay her $50 a month. And the owner says, all right, you got to buy this from me because I'm a junkyard. I'm not in the leasing business. And she negotiates, like every good entrepreneur, a rock bottom price of $500. But she didn't have $500 saved, and so she walked away, and someone told her about Acción. We had just started on Havemeyer Street, and I should have said 30 years prior, we had worked since 1961 doing microloans in Latin America. And so when we heard Uvalda tell us she needed $500 for something that we could definitely point to that was a productive asset, she knew how she wanted to use it. She knew what it was going to be for. It was a no-brainer. We lent $500, and that was our first loan in this country. But that's really just the start of the story, because what she did was she took that little cart. She named it in Spanish Antojitos Mexicanos, so Mexican appetizers, I guess you could say. That became 2 carts. Those 2 carts became a restaurant. The restaurant became 2 restaurants. Instead of making a few dollars a day, leaving hand to mouth, she was making several thousands of dollars a month. We tracked her down 20 years later. She moved from New York, unfortunately, in Texas, started another restaurant there, sold the one here. When we caught up with her, we started with 1 child. She now has 4. Of the 4, 2 have already gone to college, paid for by mom. 2 are going to go to college and will be paid for by mom because of this crazy idea of Mexican food in New York City. So when people often ask me, what can you possibly do with small loans in an expensive place like New York City, I always go back to Uvalda for $500. And we see those stories a lot. And not that $500 perhaps in this audience is going to be what you need, but the point is, and I think it was made earlier, it can be $1, right? It can be $1 and you own the exchange. We all start small and we become bigger things. And so at Acción, we believe in small is beautiful, and we're here to support the entrepreneur at that early stage. Thank you.
Great. So what I'd like to do is I'm just going to field a couple of questions, but it's more important that we open it up to all of you and have a dialogue. But I want to start with you, Saudia, because you are the one who is making it happen. You're living every day. You built a business. So maybe let's hear a little bit about some of your challenges, how you grew, what were some of the challenges accessing capital, loans, and if there are 1 or 2 tips you could give to some of the entrepreneurs out here that really helped you grow your business and what's making it work for you.
So it's been 8 years that I've been in business. So my background is in entertainment, and I did PR for movies and for celebrities for about 10 years before starting my business. So I had the idea. I put up flyers in Fort Greene, Brooklyn, and I'd be doing a red carpet on a Monday and cleaning someone's toilet on a Tuesday. And that's how I raised the $800 to start my business. By the end of 2006, I had enough money, started the business. In 2007, I transitioned into doing my business full time. The first few years was definitely tough. I think I've always been a hard worker. I was raised, moved here when I was 13 from Jamaica. And it's, I've always had three to four jobs, living the good old Jamaican stereotype. So it's, I was used to hard work, but I also took for granted and thought that everyone had the same level of work ethic. I thought when I opened my business, I'd be able to hire people and they'd want to work hard because I would pay them fairly and I would treat them well. And that was not the case. And I think that was a rude awakening and continued to be a fairly difficult challenge for running a business. And I'm, we're in the labor sort of business, so I get that, but I also hear from a lot of my other counterparts that run their own businesses, both in technology and manufacturing, and they have similar challenges. I think workforce readiness is a huge issue that we're facing, and when we talk about unemployment, I think we need to also talk about how are we making people employable. I think that's a huge issue that we're facing as well. The other major thing that I did that helped me with my business, away from looking at people and figuring out what was going to be the right strategy to bring in the right people into my organization was one. But two, in 2010, I took the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses program that really, I feel like that's when my business really started. Because I had the foundation, I had the understanding of what I needed to actually scale my business. I'm very nervous around money. I budget, I'm very good about, spending less than I make, but that's really not a strategy for growing a business. So taking the Goldman Sachs program gave me the foundation I needed to trust myself in order to take on debt. So the first loan that I received was through Seedco Financial, which is now True Fund. They invested, I went to them and said I wanted $250,000, which they said, a big fat no to that, which was fine because we had a conversation. And I think that's the key thing, is where we were able to really drill down to what would make a huge impact for my business. One thing that we realized is that we would have turnover, and where we were actually losing money was a hole that we needed to plug first. And that was, finding right people, so that rotated back to bringing in an HR person, paying for that HR person. Just bringing in that person allowed me to double my revenue the following year. So understanding your numbers, understanding your matrix in what's holding you back, why your business is not growing, was an obstacle that we tackled, we looked at, we created a plan around, a growth strategy around, and we were able to execute, my business was able to execute that within the first 2 years. And so since then, we've had between 60 and 100% year-over-year growth.
Sounds like there's a lot of perseverance in there as well, so that's great. So money is a big part of starting a business. I'd like to hear from panelists, and jump in whoever wants to tackle this first. How does a new business or a business that's up and running but needs to grow, how do they access money? How do they get loans? We get that question literally every day at the chamber. It's something I know people deal with. So what's the answer?
I think I could jump in. I think you need to have a plan. And one of the things that we see at NYSE Business Solutions, a lot of business owners in Saudi, you should be commended. They're not entirely comfortable running their business. They're comfortable with actually exercising and doing the end product, but in actually running the operations of their business, they're not comfortable. And you're going to hear a theme today, and I think that's what we're all here to do, is we provide the technical assistance. So if you're an entrepreneur, you have to figure out, and congratulations again, because most businesses fail within the first 5 years. So if you're getting into business, what's your plan for year one? What's your plan for year two? What's your plan for year three? And having that plan is important, and that's how we will be able to help you, because your financing needs changes over time. And one of the things that, when we connect our businesses to our lending partners, and we have about 30, that number that I threw out earlier, that 44 million, 78% of that was with CDFIs. And CDFIs like Paul and like Pat here, they're the ones that are actually taking the extra risk to bet on your plan. they're going to sit down with you just like you heard and look at your plan and figure out, well, you think you need 250,000, but you actually just need, 80,000 the first year, and then an additional increment, et cetera. So I think having that plan to figure out your 3-year growth strategy or your 5-year growth strategy is very important.
Great. How about down at the end?
So let me just say what's not a really good way to get financing for your small business. A way to almost guarantee long-term failure is to go online, click a couple of keystrokes, and get a loan, pay 3% for it, 60 days, and pay 25, 30, 40% interest. And the disturbing part, I think, from, I don't want to speak for Paul, and I'm sure you're going to address that themselves, is but so many small businesses, so many nascent, startup, early-stage businesses are trading terms for speed. And instead of sitting down with somebody at the Solution Center or with Axion, which are both incredibly effective technical assistance partners, are sitting through with us and going through a loan application, which may take, it's going to take some time, right? It's not instant. Many businesses are pursuing instant gratification strategies for financing that burden that business, make it impossible to succeed. How many times we've talked to people, we've seen situations that have just a very viable business has become unviable, untenable because of the presence of a lender who doesn't have the social conscience that an Axion has, that doesn't care about the business like an NYBDC does. And like Greg said, knowing your business, I think when you deal with the proper lender, when you ask the right person for the loan, there's a value-added component to that, because just as many cases where somebody will come in and say, I need $250,000 because that's sort of a number that fits nicely in your maximum loan amount today, and getting a loan for $150,000, it's just as likely that you may sit down with someone who's experienced in cash flow, financial statements, and income statements, and they may say, you know what, $100,000 is just enough money for you to get hurt, right? If you want to execute your business plan in light of your projections with regard to your receivable turn, your payable turn, you really need $200,000 to succeed. You can't succeed on 100. You could only lose my 100 and fail your business. So when you get with a partner who's willing to sit down with you, when that entrepreneur takes the time, the investment in time to make the right plan, the Solution Center, to get with a socially conscious lender that allows, that is as interested in your success as it is in their balance sheet. I mean, that's why I think that, distinguishes the socially conscious. They're as interested in your success as they are in their own balance sheets. And they're interested in see that you make the right decisions for your business and that you have continuity. And I think Paul probably has some great stuff to add to that as well.
Great points, and I guess let me first just, be frank, it's tough. Okay, really difficult, I guess, to the question of startup capital. What we know is that the first option that most people use is friends and family, so savings. So realistically, that's a real piece, and there are real risks to some of the online things. But I would, I guess, also perhaps add, there's so many more opportunities today than there ever were, even 4 or 5 years ago. So. One of the things that we've been doing at Axion is really trying to understand who it is we think we serve. And it's not an easy question, and we may have other questions or discussions about this, but we're talking about, quote, startup, and startup doesn't really tell you enough about your business to know even what financing to suggest. And so one of the things that we've learned is you can have 2 different kind of startups. And so we have a segment of customers that we call lifestyle. And the lifestyle owner is someone that's looking to create a business, and it could be a startup, but it's really to create the income that they can't either get from employment or the flexibility that they can't get from working a strict schedule, particularly parents, et cetera. And then you have startups that we'll call launch pads. These are businesses also, could be very, very early stage, but where they're looking to go is really, really far. And so what happens, and this is where it ties into the business plan, how you envision your business for the future shapes a lot of strategies. You heard about HR just a moment ago, but capital is another piece of it. And so let's peel the onion one more. Your business may have a one-time need, which is typically what we're good at. You need for example, we have people that make things on Etsy. So I need a photographer, I need a setup, I need a page, one time. And then others have very frequent funding needs where the transactions, are very well suited for 30 to 60 days, where we're not a very good fit for that. Understanding what you need for your business is going to shape that financing structure. So that's a general point. It's not easy. But on the online, I would offer a couple of sites that I'm sure most entrepreneurs, particularly in New York, we have found are very aware of, but you should definitely consider because they can fulfill some needs at a certain point. So for those of you that have more of a lifestyle type of business, the donation type of crowdfunding model is a real big opportunity for many entrepreneurs. And for those of you that are making something that you can exchange for an investment in your company, there are a lot of rewards-based platforms, I think, that are very good. For those of you that have a business model where you can project out 5 years of revenue and you're willing to let someone kick the tires and you already have something that is maybe already past the prototype stage, there are folks that will invest as a percentage of the revenue so that it's not equity, but it's equity-ish in terms of risk. And you can get some funding. And these are things that are much more flexible. Why is this a plus? Much more flexible than I think you would find from traditional lenders even years ago. So they're not going to solve all your problems, but from where we sit at Acción, we see many more options today than ever. But like Pat was saying, the problem with choice is you have to know why you're choosing it. And we don't have a concept that in the financial world we understand, which is suitability, right? There's no one there to assess whether the solution you're going to is suitable for your needs. That's where organizations and nonprofits can play a role. But I think there are more options than before. Just be thoughtful in terms of how you use them.
So I want to stay with that. Yeah, David, and then I'll...
I was just going to go back to something that Pat said in his intro, that the main reason small companies don't get loans is they don't apply. And it's something that we struggle with, not just in access to capital, but all parts of the life cycle of our tenant companies, which is they have a business to run. And they are focused on the here and now and the immediate crisis. We provide HR resources for our tenants because hiring is often something that it's easier to defer or it's easier to do quickly. I don't know how many service providers there are in the audience, but I think the question of once they get into the Acción or NYBDC's pipeline and offices, there are a lot of services out there. There's an earlier question of how do you get them into those offices that is, like I said in my intro, not glorious work. It is just going out there. We walk the halls. I know the chamber is sending out a bus, literally out to neighborhoods where access to chamber services aren't as easy. And it's very simple steps like that can engage the business person in their environment, where you don't have to have them come down to Wall Street to talk about issues. You can do it there on their shop floor in their apartment, which is a first critical step.
I think that's an important point is how do people know about services? How do they know that resources are out there? David mentions the bus. Next week we're launching something called Chamber on the Go, where we will have a van that will literally be on the go, visiting businesses throughout the city, not just Brooklyn, letting them know what resources are out there. But Saudia, I'm curious to know from you how you learned about services, and then maybe everybody here could just talk a little bit about what your respective organization does to promote and let people know about the services.
I'm on a lot of mailing lists, to tell you the truth. And I actually get involved and take advantage. I think from, whether it's business solutions, They call me almost every week about something, which is great. And, we recently just got a training grant through Business Solutions. We've gotten a grant through the U.S. Department of Commerce, which helped us implement our HR process. So it's separate from the loan. We needed to hire a consultant to build out an HR structure for our organization. I think just finding resources, talking to other entrepreneurs. I have an extended group of peers that I speak to, and it is a very powerful and strong community in Brooklyn. And we share resources very generously. I think it's just a matter of asking. I'm big on saying what my problems are and telling everyone so that we can understand how we can best help each other and just be better business owners, be more compliant in how we run our business, and using best practices. It can't be just on us as the leaders of our organization to go out and get information, but I also arm my employees to go to job fairs. We just did one for the Brooklyn Chamber, which was great for us. It's important that you go out, you access your network, and find information that way, and share what has worked for you with your peers.
Great.
I think, yeah. So I think this is a major challenge for entrepreneurs is, there are a lot of resources out there. The state and the city and the federal government and nonprofit organizations in your neighborhood and those sorts of things. And how do you get your head around all of those services and how does that fit in with my business and those sorts of things? So I think that it's incumbent upon government and some of the third-party providers to do a few things. One is to aggregate that information. Two is to provide some direct assistance, individual assistance in terms of how to navigate that information once you've taken a look at it and those sorts of things. And the third is to actually get out and communicate that where entrepreneurs are. You heard about, it shouldn't be just Wall Street, right? It has to be in the neighborhoods and the bus and all that kind of stuff. And so we do that in a few different ways. So at the state level, there are actually 140 programs and services for small businesses. So I just want to provide two pieces of information. So one is there is a directory of New York State small business programs that's divided up into access to capital and incentives and industry-specific resources and starting your business and mandated government filings and those sorts of things. That's located on our website, which is esd.ny.gov. So if you click on small business and you scroll down, you can get access to that. And then there's also a site which is called Business First, which is the business portal of the state, which is NYFirst, FIRST.ny.gov, and there's a small business resource center filter on there, as well as an MWBE filter where you can find out about those programs that are specific to minority and women businesses. So those are two resources to look at. So second of all, in terms of helping to navigate, we actually have some ombudsmen at the agency to actually help you do that. So for the downstate region, her name is Martha Otero. Her email is just Otero, O-T-E-R-O. She's not here to tell me not to give her email out. At esd.ny.gov. And she'll help you, navigate all those programs and services and do that directly. And then the third area, in terms of getting out into the community, we do that in a variety of ways. So the city has business solution centers, and they have that in every borough. We have entrepreneurial assistance centers. They tend to be focused on new businesses. They also tend to be located out in more underserved communities. And so in the city, they tend to be more out in the boroughs and so forth. So you can go to an EAP center and they can help you with business planning. There's a sort of set curriculum there. We use Next Level for some of our entrepreneurship training and those sorts of things. And then, of course, there are also the small business development centers, which we don't manage, but the state does. And so that's a partnership between the United States SBA, Small Business Administration, and the SUNY system. So those are just a couple of the resources and in terms of navigating and finding out about the programs that we offer.
I think as you are hearing, there is a large amount of assistance, and what we try to do at NYC Business Solutions is to work hand in hand with all our partners to understand sort of the eligibility requirements for all their services. One of the things we should all, we should all say is that all of our services are no cost. And I don't say free because it's actually funded through your tax dollars. So for those who actually live in New York City, you've paid for this service, so you should take advantage of it. But, a good example is this, the state has a great program called Business Mentor, and I know I'm stealing some of your thunder, but where entrepreneurs are teamed up with other entrepreneurs who actually are have dealt with a particular topic. So instead of the city creating a different program, we just partnered with the state. And through our NYC Business Solutions Center, if you sit down with us and that is an issue that you're looking for, then we connect you to the state program. So we try to get the word out, and similar to Steve, we can do a better job. A lot of our focus with this administration is really to get out in the outer boroughs, really to target immigrant communities. We use a variety of methods, including social media. Our website is nyc.gov/nycbusiness. We have a blog, but really it's the really knocking on doors, like David talked about, in terms of canvassing the different commercial districts, working with partners like the Chamber and the other chambers across the city, and working with our peers is how we are attempting to really get the word out. And of course, having advocates who are going through our programs and small business owners who can talk about the fact that, hey, this government is actually here to help, which is, I know, sometimes shocking to people.
It is shocking. But one thing I do want to add, because we're all here on a Monday morning, we could be sitting at our desks on our computer or our smartphone tweeting and Facebooking and doing whatever it is we do. But it's important to know, and I think, Saudia, you mentioned it earlier, that networking amongst each other, amongst other business owners. I know at the Navy Yard, you guys do a great thing where you have those mingle get-togethers. And for those of you who are not in one concentrated location, it may be a little harder. And that's where entities like chambers of commerce, local development corporations, BIDs, other entities like that are important because it allows you to actually shake hands with someone, talk to them, understand what they've been through. I have found that every loan I've ever gotten has been because someone told me, oh, I worked with this guy or this woman, and they were great. You should give them a call. Every job I've gotten has not been, as they used to say through the New York Times, has been because I ran into someone who said, oh, by the way, you should do this, or connections. And I think in the day of smartphones, we somehow lose a little of that. And I think it's important, particularly as a small business, to be out there. I know when I started my law firm, I had no money. So I was put up a shingle, didn't know what to do, and I was doing real estate law. So I decided I was going to go and visit every real estate broker within a 2-mile radius, and started taking them out to drinks and mingling and going to real estate and networking events, etc. And my business thrived because of that. And it's that story in every type of business. Yep, Pat.
I think one of the, actually, unlike Carlo, when I finished my law firm, I had no money. So
I left that part out.
I think one of the keys for all of us is as Carlo said, whether you're the economic developer, the lender, the agency of government that deals with small business, is the fact that, you carry on your business like theoretically you'd carry on your personal life when someone asks you for help. If you can't give the help, you don't say, sorry, I can't help you. Because I think we all have an obligation to find out who can help you. I mean, taking the next step, which happens at Axiom, which happens at SBS, which happens at Empire State and Navy Yard, I'm sure, is that we don't have this service, we don't have the assets, we don't have the program to help you, but based on our experience, we think that you may be able to get assistance from X, Y, and Z. And that network, sort of, Carlo, that you're referring to is so important in finance. You know, we work very hard. I mean, we do two things to sort of promote that. We, you know, the Nuchas, the Chobani, the Gilbert Rivera story. You know, by celebrating our successes, we are trying to attract attention to people that you may know, so you can identify with stories that may be yours. But equally important is our efforts to, you know, work with the banks, work with economic developers, to be expansive in their time and energies. And if you can't figure out how to make money from them, at least you figure out how to help them make money, all right? So, you know, a loan that we may not be able to do, referring to Axion, a business plan that needs work, referring to SBS, somebody that needs a space, and an indulgent landlord, maybe the Navy Yard, you know, a little bit of support. And, you know, and it works the other way as well. I mean, we see lots of loans where, you know, the Axion, they maybe have outgrown the capital targets of Axion, and they're freely referring those businesses somewhere else. So it's sort of the responsibility when you're in this space to provide options and to be creative. When somebody asks for help, when somebody reaches out their hand to you, you try to help them. Even if you can't provide it, you try to, you know, push them in a direction where they can get help.
Good. Yep.
Say
Steve.
just a couple words about Business Mentor NY, since that theme has come up. So I think part of the motivation for this program is realizing that connections and networking and talking to people that have done this before is so critical. And when you look across some of the services that are out there, there's some great services with you know, professional business counselors and those sorts of things. But you talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, and a lot of entrepreneurs will say, you know, I started a restaurant and the best 2 hours of my planning was talking to a successful entrepreneur and restaurateur and asking them questions like, what point of sale software should I use? How do I manage perishable inventory? How do you deal with part-time employees? Or same things if you're a retail business or you're in fashion or cosmetics or whatever. And so connecting with an expert in your field or an expert in marketing or financial management or those sorts of accounting, lawyers, those sorts of things can be extraordinarily beneficial to your business. Business Mentor NY, which is just at businessmentor.ny.gov, is the new platform that we have at the state to help facilitate those connections. So it's between entrepreneurs, and it doesn't have to be local. So it could be an expert that might be in Syracuse mentoring or providing that guidance to an entrepreneur in Long Island across all of these different disciplines. So we have some staff from the program here today and from our agency sort of leading a lot of this work. So there's Andrew Flam, who's here. Raise your hand, Andrew, and Amy Greenstein, and Ben Howard Cooper is in the back. And so you should talk to them about engaging with this program. And by the way, for those of you, because we have a mix of entrepreneurs and sort of other advocates, whether it's chambers of commerce or economic development organizations, or you might be from a bigger business that's here for another reason, we need your support too. So this is about building the platform to have that happen. And quite frankly, it's going really well. We have over 500 each of entrepreneurs and mentors on the platform already. It's only been about 3 months or so, so that's a really great sign. But we need you to participate in this. So if you're an entrepreneur, by all means, go on, search your mentors. It's pretty easy to find somebody who can answer the question that you need answered or deal with that issue. But also if you're from a company or a stakeholder organization and those sorts of things, and you feel passionately about this, this conference here today and giving back and helping support entrepreneurship and offering your skills and your expertise to other entrepreneurs, we need you to sign up and utilize this. And I think that the response has been really great, but I would encourage you to go to businessmentor.ny.gov and sign up and take advantage of this service. And again, thanks to the city and all the different other counseling centers that are participating and helping to facilitate these connections, because that's a big challenge, I think, of entrepreneurship in general, but particularly for folks that need a little bit more guidance and connections to networks and that kind of connectivity. This could be a really great resource. So just wanted to mention.
Can I point out what I think is a challenge for our field in entrepreneur support, and perhaps my co-panelists will point me in a direction of a resource that I didn't know existed. But I think it's an interesting moment where, to some extent, technology and innovation has been democratized with the kind of explosion of innovation and innovative companies, and you're seeing that filter down where you're not just talking about multi-billion-dollar companies engaging in significant research and development. You're talking about really small, highly skilled entrepreneurs who are doing so. And to some extent, very often, debt financing doesn't meet the needs of those companies. Those are companies that typically go to venture capital or angel investing or whatever it is, looking for much more patient capital. And something that we're at the Yard just starting to really see as a limiting factor for some of our companies, where they are developing extraordinary products. The two companies I point to happen actually both to be MWBE companies, but I point to them because of the nature of their products. One is developing robotic furniture, literally levitating tables, and the other, I don't know anything about motorcycles, but he has developed what seems to me to be the most extraordinary motorcycle ever. He's taken out all of the structural elements, and the engine is effectively the structural element of the motorcycle. Both of them unbelievably highly skilled, and if they were developing an app that they could sell to Google for $1 billion in a year, they probably would have been able to find a venture backer. And they're both having more trouble than you would expect them to have, or I would expect them to have, in finding a reasonably small amount of patient capital. And I think that that's an interesting challenge for the industry, because those opportunities are more and more and more prevalent, where you're not talking about cash flowing businesses, the restaurants and all that. Sometimes you are, but sometimes you're talking about somebody who has an extraordinary idea that's going to take a year to develop, and there will simply be no cash flow in that year. So that's something that we're just starting to kind of grapple with. We see it as a major, not a major impediment, but for a few of the companies at the Yard who have high growth potential, as a significant challenge for them. And one, I think, frankly, where, being a minority, I think, to Pat's first opening statement, there are hidden barriers to that, where the networks of venture capital, I mean, you're sitting in the center of the capital empire of the world, but finding the right person to talk to is unbelievably hard. And if you happen to go to MIT and have a couple graduate degrees, you might just know somebody who happens to know somebody who can give you, a couple $1 million. But if you didn't, where do you find somebody who's got money to play with and wants to invest in a great idea? That's a major challenge for our tenants.
A couple of things on that. So I think that is a challenge especially for particular types of businesses. I think if you're looking at, digital media companies in New York City, digital media is rather healthy industry here, but also stage of development and also location. So geography plays a part in where patient capital or equity capital is there. Stage of development, it's much harder to get it at the seed stage and those sorts of things. And industry and sector. So digital media may be doing pretty well in New York City, but what about some of these other industries, whether it's life sciences or med tech or other industries? And so that's actually been a major focus of ours over the last several years, and so and there's a lot of things just about to happen. So this is a good opportunity to talk a little bit about that. Just 2 minutes. So one is we have a fund called the Innovate New York Fund. So that's an equity fund, seed stage. We do it through fund managers around the state. We've actually done the latest numbers, sort of looked at this last week. It's like with our money and the matching money from the funds and the syndicate, have facilitated $124 million in companies in smaller chunks, so typically about just a couple $100,000, into 57 companies around the state. So that program is going extraordinarily well. It's not just digital media in New York City, so it is spread around sort of different geographies and different sectors. And there will be a part of that fund which will be dedicated to MWBEs in a more explicit way. Right now, there are MWBEs that are funded through that program. There's actually a group called Golden Seeds, which they focus really on companies that have women in the C-suite, and not exclusively so, but that's a big focus of theirs, and so they're making investments around the state. And then, so coming up, there'll be a more explicit MWBE piece with some additional money for that through Innovate New York, using that structure. There will also be the governor's new $50 million innovation venture capital fund, and so that is going to be funding technology commercialization coming out of universities, as well as having a co-investment equity piece around sort of underserved industries and those sorts of things. And that's going to be done in a much more direct way. And so there'll be, I don't want to steal there'll be an announcement on that very shortly. But that's another area of focus for us. So
Great. So I think at this point we should open it up to all of you to hear your questions, concerns, ideas. So if you do want to speak, raise your hand. Juan, you can be the first one.
How do you invest from a business perspective as opposed to an emotional perspective?
I don't do very well at actually differentiating between the two. And I say that because my people, they are my product. So, I have to invest in my people in order to deliver on the promise that we're making as a company. We're also a B corporation as well, so I like to say we're for profit and for people, and that is really what I focus on, is how I can get the two to work and sync together. And that means creating accountability through measurement and understanding cause and effect, educating my employees. So we do financial literacy education. We recently brought in a credit repair company to help them work on their credit. If we can get our staff to move forward and move out of being considered working poor, disadvantaged, then we can begin to have as a company, we can begin to have a larger conversation about how do we become successful, how do we really become, extremely profitable as a business and create more jobs, ultimately. I think it's, when you look at the statistics that Black-owned businesses, 95% of Black-owned businesses do not, go past 10 million in revenue. That's a huge problem because we're here to do business and we're part of the ethnic majority. And so I think that needs to be a part of the long-term conversation, is how do we scale and become bigger businesses that are part of the decision-making at the end.
I think we have a question here.
Good morning there. I appreciate
and
the
just
comment.
tell us who you are.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Jay Jackson, and I'm actually from Florida. I'm actually here on business, meeting with the investors for my company. But I wanted to thank you for the point that you made about the technology sector, because I'm in the technology sector, and it doesn't necessarily meet the standard criteria for standard lending. And as a gentleman talked about this morning when he said sitting in front of this article that they talked about, sitting in front of bankers talking about receiving a loan, when you're sitting in front of investors, it's even worse. As a minority, sitting in front of an investor talking about your technology idea, even with the portfolio companies that I do business with. But you talked about there are some resources for technology companies, but are there any resources for that seed stage when you're pre-revenue? You have this great concept that is growing in users, but you're pre-revenue. Do you all have any resources or have any plans to have any resources that can connect minority entrepreneurs with investors who are open-minded to
to their concept, being that they're a minority?
So I think the answer to that is yes. So the fund that I mentioned, the Innovate New York Fund, is, and again, there's 7, soon to be 8 investment fund managers around the state. That's all seed stage, and the way we define seed stage is pre-revenue, early revenue, or first institutional money in. So all of those companies sort of meet that criteria. I think that one thing to do is to take a look at, this is only one fund. It's $45 million. It's $35 million in state money. Goldman Sachs put in 10 actually to make it 45. And then they leverage that money against sort of, angel investors and other sort of investors to syndicate those deals, is to take a look at who's participating in Innovate New York. I can talk to you afterwards and help make those connections there. There are other groups that don't participate, which you can take a look at, like NYSE Seed in New York City, and what the partnership is doing, Partnership for New York City. And then there are angel networks that you can tap into, and there's some information on equity on the Business First website that I mentioned as well. And then the biggest chunk of the new fund that I talked about is going to be dedicated to seed stage businesses, and we're going to do that a little bit more directly, so it's not going to be through separate like outside third-party fund managers. But happy to talk to you individually afterwards.
Yes. We have one there and then one here.
Yes, hello. Hello. You hear me?
Hello.
Yep. Oh, great. I'm Natasha Green. I am actually the founder and owner of Hidden Gems. Hidden Gems, a lot of things, right? Hidden Gems Archery, Hidden Gems Women, and etc. Archery, bow and arrow, Katniss. Okay. People don't get it the first time I say it because they're like, archery, who does archery? But archery. So the question I have for the panel, I actually made a mistake in how I started up finding a permanent location for my archery business. I went online, and instant gratification, like Patrick talked about, I used like a Prosper loan to get my first location. So the advice or insight I would love to have for anyone on the panel is, how do I move from the concept now that, okay, I used Prosper loan, I'm working through the logistics of paying it back monthly and etc. But we do want to grow, and I do want another location in Manhattan. So we have one in Park Slope, and I want to grow. So what route should I take now? Should I go look for a business mentor? Should I, email one of you guys? I'm in this flux of, okay, what do I do now? I'm still young, but I do want to grow, and I see a vision for us. So any help will be appreciated.
So the first thing you should do is go to 9 Bond Street and visit the New York City Business Solutions Center, and speak to one of the account reps there, and they can just give you some advice and a sense of hearing what's next for you. And then from there, we can help kind of put you in the right direction.
Yeah. What is your business?
Archery.
Okay. One of the things that we often see with entrepreneurs, and, Brian and David are from our shop are here, we often see that they make a misstep financially, right? So they find themselves locked into maybe it's a high interest rate loan, but often it's not. It's a relatively short amortization loan, that with high payments and requires you to get out of it, or basically devote all of your cash flow to pay your debt. Part of that growth plan is finding someone who's got an appetite to refinance that debt, to take it out and take it over a longer period of time that's more suitable to your growth plan. So all that money. Oh, hello, you there? Okay, archery. Find a lender, NYBDC, Axion, find a lender that's willing to refinance your existing debt structure. Once again, through the assistance of the SBS, to identify that plan, to take it over a longer period of time to allow, to free up cash flow to support the growth that you want to look at. But clearly, the planning part of it is, as Carlo indicated, is essential to that, and showing how you can handle more debt, but maybe with a different repayment structure. And that we do, that's how we get a disdain for many of the online lenders, because, as as Paul said, it's great. So we talk to them and they say, well, you're not going to, I'm only borrowing it for 5, I know it's 30%, but I'm not going to pay 30% because I'm only borrowing it for 7 days because I'm waiting for this receivable to come in. Well, guess what? Surprise, the receivable doesn't come in. Right? So then that starts a death spiral in many cases where you're stuck with that. So, there may be expedient things or things you do in the early stages that as your business matures and you get some legs under it and you have some, some history that allows you to do more meaningful projections, you may want to restructure your debt and acquire, additional capital, leverage capital to sort of fund a growth plan that you have. You have the advantage, you've run the business, you sort of know a lot about it. And that puts you in an ideal position to look for more help.
I just add one minor comment because I think the advice of where to start makes a lot of sense. But I hear the word grow a lot. And I would just ask that you think about why and what. Because, 5 locations, why? If your goal is perhaps more take-home pay, maybe there's exercises in profitability. Maybe there's exercises in how you source. Maybe there's exercises in how you acquire customers. Maybe there are things that are more, it might seem inwardly focused, but can get you a better bottom line. I heard a saying, this is for an individual, but it's not the income that pays the debt, it's your savings, right? And I think similar to a business, it's not the revenue, it should be your profits. And so I sometimes growth makes a lot of sense and there's a reason for it. Sometimes what you really mean, I think, is you want to be more profitable. And that's a whole different kind of discussion. So it's to augment what you're saying as you have these discussions. Don't be too quick to talk about growth until you understand what that really means and why, because growth is very costly.
Yeah, Lisa.
I'm Lisa Bing Consulting Group. I work with executives to improve workplace performance. And I want to build on Juan's question to you. You talked about you share your problems easily, and I'm wondering if part of that is how do you have the self-confidence to share those problems? I think in the Black community in particular, our history is that you don't share your dirty laundry. So how do you square sharing your problems with running your business?
I'm a firm believer that closed mouths don't get fed at the end of the day. I say that a lot to a lot of people. I think that is a philosophy that I've lived by. In addition, in college, I had a professor who was 28, a Black professor, had his master's from Harvard, his MBA from Harvard, and his PhD from Princeton at 28. And he used to say, I am no smarter than the homeless guy that lived on the corner when I was growing up in the projects. And the other thing that he would always say is, the one thing I know for sure is that I know nothing at all. And so, that has always stuck with me, and I bring that to every conversation. Just having an open mind about things, and understanding that I can always be better. I'm always learning, and I try to instill that in our staff. And it goes to, I'll say to them, if we're making the same mistakes, we have big problems. I only want to hear about new mistakes. And we sort of celebrate and have a culture where we celebrate new mistakes. We have conversations around them. And that has to be it when you're building a company, when you're building a nonprofit, whatever you're doing, that has to stay at the focus, is that we need to be focused on getting better and share, and that comes from sharing and openness.
Hi, my name is Dennis Lockagnata, and I own a company called Prompt Direct. And first, I'd like to say I'm very grateful for my education at St. Francis College for getting where I am today. We have a 35-year young company. My question for the panel is, there's a lot of talk about helping new businesses. In regards to old businesses who may need a succession plan or is looking for a possible employment purchase program, are there good programs to reach out to?
So I'll take this. Following up on some of what you heard on the panel in terms of how we can help businesses grow. So at NYC Business Solutions, obviously we have to be all things to all businesses in New York City. A lot of what we talked about this morning was on the education entrepreneurship side, but we do have programs for businesses that are growing and are much more mature. There's a program called Strategic Steps for Growth, which we partner with NYU. It's a 9-month executive training program. And that program really focuses on, why are you in business? What's your plan? What's your succession plan? Basically all the issues that a mature business is going through, we cover in that area. Because that program is special, I'm going to step back a little bit because there is a fee associated with that. But if you are just looking for a crash course, we partner with Goldman Sachs, the 10,000 Small Business, and we also have another program with SUNY 11 called Fast Track Growth Venture. Both excellent programs to help businesses that are a little bit more mature, a little bit beyond 2 years of operating, and sort of having the question of, should I expand my business? What's the next steps for me? And how is that a cue for me to stop talking now? I was joking. But really, what's the next step for my business? And I'm glad you spoke about that because whenever I speak to entrepreneurs, and I always talk about a plan, like, why are you in business? Are you in business to turn your business over to the next generation, or are you in business to sell that business? Because depending on the goal, will change how you operate the business.
Somebody must be making a lot of money right now with that.
So on that same point, to follow up, one of the things that we see a lot as businesses start deal with succession or sale issues, the walk of shame. So as businesses start to deal with that, whether they're retail businesses or other businesses, we often see opportunities to come for a purchase of a business, and I'm sure Paul does as well, where the price is X and the historic performance is X minus 1,000, right? Part and parcel of being able to have a succession plan, whether you're selling it to your employees or whether you're allowing them to get earned equity over time through bonus programs, or whether you're seeking to sell it to a third party, is that the financial activity of the business has been properly and accurately recorded historically, so that adds value to the business, so that I, as a finance, someone who would finance that transaction, can look to the business and see the historic, performance is consistent with the price. We're only going to be able to finance a business operation that can be seen. We can't deal with, and most traditional financiers can't deal with a business operation that we all know is there. We're not stupid, but we can't see it. You can't see it on a tax return. You can't see it on a financial statement. You can usually see it on the personal financial statement of the principal, but you may not be able to see it on the. So that really depends on getting the right accountant, so you're able to value the business, that you're able to deal with the tax consequences of those kinds of transactions, that you're able to properly stage it. And that's all, sort of building that foundation from the very start of getting the right professionals, positioning yourselves, and making sure that, that it's organized properly and that there's attention paid to those organizational and financial issues right from the start. It makes it a lot easier to get to the end or to the finish.
Succession planning is actually something we hear about all the time, and end of November, we're going to be hosting a panel discussion on what happens when you decide to sell your business, or what happens when you are an immigrant-owned restaurant or any other type of business. Your children have gone off to college, and you're retiring, and kids say, we don't want to cook, we don't want to own a laundromat, we don't want to own a dry cleaner, whatever it may be. There are new groups and new entrepreneurs out there who would love to purchase an established building. So it's going to be a morning of bringing together some ideas, but also connecting new entrepreneurs with those that want to sell. Yes.
I'm Kristen McDonough, and I run the Business Library of New York Public at 34th and Madison. And I raised my hand originally because of the several mention of aggregating, and I wanted everybody to come away with the URL nypl.org/smallbiz, because that's exactly what we do in our 300-item services directory. We aggregate every city, state, program, every NGO, every bid, every academic program to help small businesses. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. And then when I heard the archery entrepreneur, and I heard the mention of content, I wanted to make sure you knew that we provide absolutely free access to over 200, that's 200 commercial databases. You come in, you know nothing, maybe. You come in with your joystick and you download B2B business leads from our databases, sourcing, retail site location. You can find out through market research who is interested in archery and where they live and what their disposable income is. So that's the second thing I wanted to say. But the third is that we are running with a Thrive grant from the New York City Economic Development Corporation, starting at our library on October 7th, and then at the Brooklyn Business Library, and then at the Queens, an 18-hour free hands-on training in the nuts and bolts of succession planning, how to value your business, tax and accountancy issues, estate planning, family issues, totally free. And it is, this first round, which starts on October 7th, is for immigrant-owned businesses which have been operating for more than 3 years. So in addition to all the resources here, please consider your public business libraries. We're at 34th and Madison. We have someone, Paul Otto, here from the Brooklyn Business Library. They can give you content, training, access to free online training at lynda.com, where you can learn about project management and how to develop your business cards, and we're always absolutely free. Thank you.
Questions?
Good morning. My name is Gene Alert. I own the first frozen yogurt, well, the only frozen yogurt shop in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn. And I also have a marketing company. But I've been a minority-owned business, a WMBE, for the city for the past 4 years. And it's extremely difficult. I've been trying to compete against the big players, but it's really difficult for a business like mine to compete with the major players. And I wanted to find out, I have two questions. One, how to transition to state, to become an MWE for the state, and then also, how do you find the winners of the bids to become a resource to them, to help them? Because I know part of their contracts, they have to have, part of their funding, they have to have a minority percentage that they allocate to receive that money. So how do you find them? And I've been trying to go to 9 Bond Street.
9 Bond.
And, you know, they always give me the same answer, so you guys are here, so I want to see if you guys can answer that question.
So I'll jump into on the city side, and for those who also have similar questions, you can email me, gbishop@sbs.nyc.gov. I think a couple things I need to talk to you about your specific business. I think one of the things that, and I'm just being frank now, with a lot of entrepreneurs, they look at government contracting as an opportunity to diversify their revenue streams. And one of the things I always ask, similar to why are you growing, why do you want to sell for government? Government is, and I think we won't sugarcoat it, we are very complex, because if we tell you we want a 10 by 10 table that's white, that's what you need to provide. It can't be 10 by 2 or whatever it is. And you have to document and have to follow up with, invoicing, et cetera, et cetera. So your operations has to be at a capacity to handle government contracts. One of the things we do at SBS is actually we have a sell to government class to help you understand how to actually sell to government, and then allow you to make that decision. So I'll talk to you individually to figure out what your product, what exactly you're trying to accomplish to actually sell to government. Because in some cases, your product may not be the best fit for us. But for those who are interested in actually learning about who wins contracts, there is something that we have in the city, and the state also has something similar. It's called City Record. So if you go to nyc.gov/City Record, you can navigate the site and find awards, and you will see the contract holders for all bids over $100,000. So we'll talk offline about your particular need, but if anyone else has any questions about procurement and how to diversify your revenues through government procurement, you can certainly send me an email and I'll put you in touch with the right folks.
Are you a Brooklyn Chamber member? All righty, well then. I've got all 1870 memorized. I knew you weren't one. But speak to Veronica, who's sitting right near you. Raise your hand. She could talk to you about Brooklyn Connects, which connects businesses and procurement opportunities. She could also process your membership right now.
One thing on the state side is if you're already certified with the city, the application with the state is a lot easier. So we have a fast track reciprocal arrangement with the city. So you can go on our website, which is esd.ny.gov, and you click on MWBE, and the online listing of opportunities is called the New York State Contract Reporter. You can sign up for e-alerts, which will automatically email new opportunities in your area to you. You fill out a profile, it'll email those opportunities to you. Also check out the New York State Contract System, which is the system through which you certify, but also you can find out about contracts and awards and those sorts of things through there, or you can call the MWBE division or call me and I'll connect you with some folks who can dive into like who the state is awarding money to.
Good morning. My name is Giovanni from Proper Systems. It's an IT firm located in Brooklyn. I'm also a director at the New York State Veteran Chamber of Commerce. And I've met a variety of veterans who are entrepreneurs, but they're always hitting that money issue. Do you guys have any programs? This is open to the panel. Do you have specific programs for veterans? And there are some that I only know of where it's post 9/11, not prior. So I was wondering, does anyone have any specific programs for veterans?
We just at NYBDC, we've had a veteran loan program since shortly after 9/11, although that does not, it's not delimited to veterans from the post 9/11 period. It's open to veterans of all service periods. And essentially, it's a program that we offer in connection with the New York State Common Retirement Fund, which is a source of capital for us. But we offer loans to veterans up to $150,000 for veteran-owned businesses that at the prime rate, okay, which is it's about 3% now. So those loans to veterans, the program is essentially a very favorable interest rate in amortization. Anybody here familiar with Fifth Avenue Chocolatier? Chocolate company that's on Fifth Avenue up near Rockefeller Center and also in Valley Stream, but in Long Island, which is a veteran-owned business that used that capital to start, and now now they're franchising the concept out to veterans, quite frankly. But we do, on the other side of the coin, a lot of the, both in the veteran community and in the minority community, a lot of business opportunities are pursued through franchises, which offer, some of the built-in opportunities, centralized ordering, processing, those kind of things. And so we do a lot of franchise lending, which ultimately ends up being a lot of veteran and minority business financing as well. So our program is in terms of just a favorable rate, and with the pen being in my hand for the signature on my background, I hold a very warm spot in my heart for it. So they tend to get special treatment, maybe not even warranted, but they get it.
I would just echo that we have a program. This is thanks to the Robin Hood Foundation, but this would be for, it's not just the veteran. What we found is that sometimes it's not the veteran that's the owner. We found that family members of a veteran, what we're looking to do is support the veteran, whether she or he is the owner. but they have to be engaged in the business in some way. It's limited in our case to the 5 boroughs of New York City, so unfortunately, it's only citywide. And our program has always been focused on people with more challenged credit, typically people with very limited, if any, collateral. So our program, I think, is about 9% fixed per annum. So it's a higher cost, but it's meant for individuals that have more credit challenges.
On the state side, we have a number of programs where we target veterans as part of the program, but the big news this year is the passage of the Veteran Certification Program. So that's going to, at the state level, create a regime for certifying veteran-owned businesses and having goals set with agencies in terms of their contracting with veteran businesses.
So you're referring to the city. So we are looking at what the city can do to support veterans on the procurement side. The study is finished and will be released, I believe, in October in terms of the next steps for the city. But we do, in addition to all our partners, we have entrepreneurship programs. We partner with Syracuse University to help assist veterans. And we also help veterans in terms of registering for different federal programs.
And just at the state level, that certification program's not going to be through Empire State Development. I believe it's going to be through the Office of General Services.
So we'll take one more question. Yes, sir, in the back.
How you doing? My name is Sefis Danovic. I'm a part of the Mark of Excellence for New York High School. And I have a question for Ms. Davis. I was wondering, before you started your company, if you had a plan before you went into it, or you just made your decisions as you went along.
Did you say New Utrecht High School?
New Utrecht High School.
Great Bensonhurst High School.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for the question. I did not have a plan, no. I literally wanted to figure out if it was feasible. So I put up flyers in Fort Greene and just started cleaning. It gave me a lot of information. I consider it my market research. First client, she set our curtains on fire, 7 hours cleaning a 1-bedroom apartment. I learned a lot in those 7 hours about what it took to provide the service that we do. And as a result, a lot of how I think about the business comes from that, understanding the work that it takes and the commitment, and also understanding from the client's perspective what the needs are and how to deliver on those.
Good. So let's give a round of applause to all of our panelists. I think we got some incredible information this morning, and please follow up with all of them in the future.
There were so many takeaways from today's event. I really hope that you will all continue making those connections, continue sending out your tweets, continue networking just so that we can help support each other and sort of further extend the reach of what the Center for Entrepreneurship is doing, what St. Francis is doing, and what each of us are doing in our own industries. So that's your homework, everyone. And now for my final introduction. Please welcome the Assistant Director of Programs at St. Francis College's Center for Entrepreneurship, Mr. Robert Wu, Esquire. Come on up.
Just on behalf of St. Francis College's Center for Entrepreneurship, I just want to thank everybody for coming out. And we just want to extend a very brief gratitude to all the people who made this event a triumph. President Brendan Dugan, who's the president of St. Francis College, of course, Lou Pastina, thank you very much. Carlo, Scissura, big thank you to you for hosting the panel, and all of our wonderful and knowledgeable panelists today. We want to thank Camille Fredrickson, obviously, for arranging the event here at the New York Stock Exchange. And we want to obviously thank Ms. Jacqueline Gonzalez for emceeing the event. So thank you very much for that. And then finally, we just want to thank the St. Francis College Center for Entrepreneurship staff. And we couldn't coax him to say any words, but he's standing up in the back. There's Dr. Anderson. I don't know if we can give him a round of applause for hosting this event. Professor Mary Gellermino is sitting here as well, and she's just a fantastic lady. She's made this thing very successful. And Mr. Robert Oliva, who's also in the back. He's behind the scenes and working very hard to make this a triumph as well. So in any event, we hope the summit has been valuable for you. Hopefully it's highlighted some of the issues that are facing minority entrepreneurs in a very challenging environment. Hopefully it helped you facilitate the exchange of ideas, and hopefully it helps you continue the conversation as to how we can overcome some of these challenges going forward. I just want to mention that St. Francis College is also engaged in the process of creating entrepreneurship and helping entrepreneurships create the sustainable socioeconomic value. We have a host of events coming up in the future, in the near-term future, that are designed to facilitate those types of things. We are having a Women's Entrepreneur Forum in November. There's a panel on finance for entrepreneurs also in November, as well as a business pitch competition where we will be awarding monies to a winner of a business pitch competition. And importantly, we have certificate programs that are designed to do what we do best, which is educate. We have certificate programs designed to educate and help entrepreneurs who are looking for ways to become business owners succeed. So along those lines, we have a couple of programs that we're excited to introduce in October of this year. We have a not-for-profit governance certificate, which is designed to help those people who are stewards of nonprofit organizations establish compliance with the new New York State laws for non-compliance, or not for non-compliance, I should say for nonprofit regulation. So we have a certificate program that's directly aimed for that. We also have a certificate program for new business creation, which is teaching you how to create a business. Greg Bishop mentioned earlier that how do you start it? How do you start a business? You need a plan, right? So the certificate program is designed to help people understand some of the challenges in starting the business. And then finally, we'll have a not-for-profit financial reporting piece as well. That's more geared towards the controllers and CFOs of nonprofit organizations and helping them discharge their duties in the course of running a nonprofit. So let us know if we can be a resource. We have a virtual incubator, and we have subject matter experts, and we're always looking to partner with people who are like-minded entrepreneurs and who are looking to create sustainable socioeconomic value. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for coming.